I used to think our life was quiet in a good way. Not exciting, not dramatic, just steady. A small house on a calm street outside Columbus. The kind where neighbors wave when they mow their lawns and everyone knows the sound of everyone else's car. My wife, Linda, worked downtown at a marketing office. Tall glass building, expensive suits, people who like to talk about deadlines and promotions. Me. I ran a small auto repair shop 3 miles from the house. Grease under the nails, coffee in a chipped mug, the smell of oil that never really leaves your clothes. No kids. Never happened for us. At first that emptiness felt heavy, but after a while we just learned to live around it like an old piece of furniture you stop noticing. Linda didn't like driving in city traffic. Said the parking garages made her nervous and the commute exhausted her. So one day she told me she started using rides from an app. Uber mostly. Just easier, she said while scrolling her phone at the kitchen table. I shrugged. Made sense. Downtown traffic can make a saint curse. At first it was nothing. She'd leave the house around 8 in the morning, order a ride, and a car would pull up in front of the house. Sometimes I saw it through the garage window while tightening bolts on an engine. Just another sedan stopping for 30 seconds before driving off. Different cars most of the time. Except, after a few weeks, I started noticing one that showed up more than the others. A gray Toyota Camry. Same dent in the rear bumper. Same little pine tree air freshener hanging from the mirror. Same driver. Tall guy. Dark hair. Always leaning over the passenger seat when Linda got in, talking to her for a moment before pulling away. At the time, I didn't think anything of it. Drivers get repeat customers sometimes. That's what I figured. Linda started mentioning him now and then too. Got the same driver again today, she'd say while kicking off her heels. Nice guy. Name's Eric. She said it casually, but I noticed she smiled when she said it. Not the kind of smile you give a stranger. The kind you give someone you're starting to enjoy seeing. Weeks turned into months. And that gray Camry kept showing up. Morning rides. Evening rides. Sometimes she came home laughing about something he said. Sometimes she'd stay in the car talking for a minute before getting out. I remember one evening in particular. I was standing in the garage doorway when the Camry pulled up. Instead of getting out right away, Linda stayed in the passenger seat. They were talking. Laughing. 5 minutes went by. Then she finally stepped out and waved at him. Not a quick wave either. One of those slow ones, the kind that lingers. When she came inside she looked lighter somehow. Like she just had the best conversation of her day. Traffic bad? I asked. She tossed her purse on the chair and shrugged. Not really. Then she walked to the fridge, poured herself wine, and smiled to herself like she was replaying something funny in her head. I should have asked more questions. But I didn't. Because when you trust someone, you don't go looking for cracks in the wall. And besides, at that time I still believed something simple. That cheating, real cheating, happened in messy bars or cheap hotels. Not in the front seat of a taxi. Funny thing about life though, kid. Sometimes the quietest roads hide the sharpest turns. And that gray Camry, well, it was already carrying a secret. I just hadn't opened the door yet. Once a thing becomes routine, you stop seeing it clearly. That's how betrayal likes to dress itself, as routine. Every morning that gray Camry rolled up in front of the house, and every morning Linda stepped into it like she was sliding into a second life. At first I barely noticed. I had invoices to finish, customers whining about brake pads, engines spread open like surgery on steel tables. A man can miss a lot when he's busy earning the money that keeps the lights on. But little things began to shift. Linda started taking longer to get ready for work. Not by much at first. 10 extra minutes in front of the bathroom mirror. Then 20. New perfume. Better perfume. Not the one she wore for holidays or dinners out with me. Something sharper. Sweeter. Meant to linger after she stepped out of a car. She bought new blouses too. Tight in the waist, soft fabric, expensive enough that I noticed the charge on the card statement. When I asked about it, she rolled her eyes and told me a woman was allowed to look good without being interrogated like a criminal. That was Linda's way. Always straight to outrage. Always ready with that sharp little edge in her voice, like she kept a knife tucked behind her teeth. I let it go. Then she started mentioning Eric more often. Not too much. Just enough. Eric says downtown construction will be a mess all week. Eric told me about a little coffee place near the office. Eric says the airport runs pay better than local trips. Always casual. Always like she was just passing along harmless nonsense. But people don't repeat a man's opinions that often unless they've started making room for him in their heads. One Thursday evening I closed the shop early because a parts order got delayed. I came home around 4 instead of 6. Linda didn't know that. I pulled into the driveway and saw her standing at the curb beside the gray Camry. Not getting out. Not walking away. Standing there with the passenger door open, talking to him through the frame of the car like either one of them wanted the conversation to end. She was laughing in that low, breathy way I hadn't heard in a long time. Her hand touched his arm once. Lightly. Familiar. That touch stayed with me. She came in 3 minutes later and nearly jumped when she saw me at the kitchen sink. "You're home early." I told her about the parts delay. She set her purse down too fast. Missed the chair and let it drop to the floor. Then she snapped at me for scaring her, as if I'd done something wrong by being in my own house. That night she was restless. Kept checking her phone. Smiling at it. Turning the screen away when I walked past. I asked who kept messaging her. She said, "Work." Just that. One word. Flat and irritated. Then she added, "Not everything is your business." That sat in the room like smoke. Over the next 2 weeks, things sped up. She started asking the driver to take her other places, not just work. Dry cleaner. Grocery store. Salon across town she suddenly liked better than the one 5 minutes away. Strange how many errands appeared once she had a man ready to open the door for her. One Saturday she told me she was meeting a girlfriend for lunch. Came home 3 hours late. Cheeks flushed. Hair redone. Mean mood. When I asked how lunch was, she said, "Fine," and went upstairs before I could ask which girlfriend. I stood there in the hallway listening to her heels click up the stairs, and for the first time I felt it. Not proof. Not certainty. Just that cold little draft under the door of a marriage. You know the one. The feeling that somebody has invited a stranger inside, and you're the last fool in the house to notice. Still, I told myself I was imagining things. A husband can do that when he loves a woman longer than he should. He can explain away what would look obvious to anyone standing outside it. That was my mistake. I was still trying to protect my peace, while she was already protecting her lies. And Linda. Lord, that woman could lie with a straight face and a heartbeat as calm as Sunday morning. That's what made her dangerous. Not the cheating. The ease of it. The cheerfulness. The way she could kiss me goodnight after spending half the day building something ugly with another man. And by then, kid, she wasn't just riding in his cab anymore. She was looking for reasons to stay in it. You ever notice how lies start small? They don't burst through the door. They slip in quietly, sit down, make themselves comfortable. By the 3rd month of Linda riding with that driver, the lies had stopped sounding nervous. They sounded practiced. That's when I started paying attention. Not snooping exactly. Just observing. Linda had developed new habits. She carried her phone everywhere now. Bathroom. Laundry room. Even the backyard when she watered the plants. That phone might as well have been stitched to her hand. And she smiled at it. Not polite smiles. Those secret little ones people get when someone is whispering to them through a screen. One night while we were watching television, the phone buzzed beside her. She picked it up so fast she nearly knocked over her wine glass. I caught a name before the screen turned away. Eric. Not Uber. Not a number. A name saved in her contacts. I didn't say anything. But something heavy settled in my chest. Later that week I asked her, as casually as I could manage. "Still getting the same driver?" She shrugged without looking up from her phone. "Sometimes." That was the whole answer. Short. Sharp. Dismissive. Linda had a talent for making questions feel like insults. But the pattern was there now. I could see it. The gray Camry still arrived almost every morning. Some days she'd come home glowing, talking too fast, pouring herself wine before even taking off her coat. Other days she'd come in irritated, snapping at me over nothing. Mood swings. That's what secrets do to people. One afternoon I was working under a truck when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Linda. "Working late tonight. Don't wait up." Simple enough. Except something about it didn't sit right. Maybe it was the timing. Maybe it was the tone. Or maybe it was just the accumulation of too many small things stacked together like loose bricks. I closed the shop early that evening. drove downtown. Not because I had proof of anything. Just because something inside me needed to see. Her office building sat at the corner of a busy street. I parked across from it and waited. 6 o'clock came. People started pouring out of the doors. Office workers, suits, backpacks, tired faces ready for dinner and television. Then I saw the Camry. Gray. Same dented bumper. It pulled to the curb like it belonged there. Eric stepped out of the driver's seat. Tall guy. Mid-30s maybe. Athletic build. Confident in the way some men are when they know women respond to them. He leaned against the car, waiting. 5 minutes later Linda walked out of the building. She spotted him immediately. Her whole posture changed. Shoulders straight. Smile wide. That same soft laugh I'd heard weeks earlier. She didn't hurry to the car like someone catching a ride. She walked to him slowly. And then she hugged him. Not a polite hug. The kind that lingers a few seconds longer than it should. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. But even then, I still told myself the same lie husbands tell themselves when the truth is standing right in front of them. Maybe they're just friends. That's a powerful lie, kid. Strong enough to blind a man who doesn't want his world falling apart. They talked beside the car for a while. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw the body language. Comfort. Familiarity. Too much familiarity for a driver and his passenger. Eventually they both got in. The Camry pulled into traffic and disappeared down the street. I sat there another 10 minutes staring at the place where the car had been. Part of me wanted to follow them. Part of me wanted to go home and pretend I hadn't seen anything at all. And that's exactly what I did. Because sometimes a man delays the truth the same way you delay bad news from a doctor. You already know what it's going to say. You're just hoping the test is wrong. But here's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't stay subtle forever. People like Linda, people who enjoy the thrill of deception, they get careless eventually. And a few weeks later, I stopped guessing. Because that night I saw something I couldn't explain away anymore. Something that turned suspicion into certainty. And once a man sees that, there's no going back to sleep. After that day downtown, I couldn't unsee it. The hug. The way she looked at him. Still, I didn't confront her. Not yet. A man needs more than a feeling before he blows up his own house. So I watched. Quietly. Linda kept acting like nothing in the world had changed. Same sharp tone. Same dramatic sighs whenever I asked normal questions. But she had new habits now. She stayed out later. Her phone buzzed more often. And sometimes, late at night, she'd sit on the edge of the bed texting while she thought I was asleep. One Thursday evening she told me she had a team dinner. You ever notice how cheaters love that excuse? Work dinner. Work drinks. Work meeting. Work becomes a wonderful hiding place. She spent nearly an hour getting ready that night. Red dress. Hair curled. Perfume strong enough to float down the hallway. I remember standing in the kitchen pretending to rinse dishes while watching her through the reflection in the window. She looked excited. Not nervous. Excited. Like someone heading towards something she wanted. The Camry pulled up outside right on time. She grabbed her purse and walked out without even saying goodbye. That bothered me more than the dress. So I did something I'd never done in my marriage before. I followed her. Not right away. I gave it about 30 seconds before grabbing my keys and pulling out slowly behind them. Traffic downtown was thick enough that they didn't notice me. The Camry turned toward the business district, but then something strange happened. They drove past her office building. Kept going. 2 blocks. 3. Then the car turned down a quiet side street filled with restaurants and small bars. Not exactly the place for corporate team dinners. The Camry parked along the curb. I parked half a block away and watched. Linda didn't get out immediately. Neither did he. They sat in that car for nearly 5 minutes. Talking. Laughing. And then I saw it. His hand reached across the center console. Touched her knee. She didn't move it away. Instead, she leaned toward him. Not all the way. Just enough that the meaning was clear. My stomach went cold. Finally they stepped out of the car. Eric walked around and opened her door like he was some kind of gentleman. Linda laughed again, that same soft laugh she never gave me anymore. Then they walked into a small bar together. Not a group dinner. Just the 2 of them. I sat in my truck staring at the door for almost 20 minutes. I could have walked in right then. Could have blown the whole thing apart in the middle of the room. But something stopped me. Maybe pride. Maybe disbelief. Or maybe the simple fact that part of me still hoped I was wrong. So I drove home. When she came back later that night, almost midnight, she stumbled into the house smelling like wine. Her heels clicked unevenly on the floor. I asked how the team dinner went. She rolled her eyes and dropped her purse on the couch. God, you're nosy tonight. That was Linda's way. Every question was an accusation in her mind. Then she added, without even looking at me. It was boring. Just work people. She said it so easily. So casually. Like she hadn't just spent 3 hours in a bar with another man. That's when something inside me changed. Not anger. Not yet. Something colder. A quiet understanding that the truth was no longer hiding. It was walking around my house wearing my wife's face. And Linda? Well, she had no idea I'd already seen the first crack in her perfect little lie. But the worst part? That wasn't even the affair yet. No, kid. The real betrayal was already growing, and it was happening somewhere far more reckless than a quiet bar. Inside that taxi. And the day I caught them there. That's the day my marriage died. You learn something about people when they think they're getting away with something. They get braver. Reckless. Linda had reached that stage. After that night at the bar, her attitude changed completely. The little bits of caution she used to show were gone. She started coming home later and later, always with some excuse ready. Work drinks. Client meeting. Traffic was awful. Every lie delivered with the same irritated tone, like I was the one causing problems by even listening. One evening she came home nearly an hour late. I was sitting at the kitchen table when she walked in, heels in one hand, phone in the other. You're staring again. She snapped before I even spoke. I told her I was just waiting for dinner. She rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might fall out of her head. Then cook something. I'm not your maid. That was Linda. When she felt guilty, she turned mean. Sharp words came out of her like sparks off metal. She went upstairs and slammed the bedroom door. But before she disappeared, her phone buzzed. And I heard her laugh. Not upstairs. Right there in the hallway. That same laugh. The one she used for Eric. Over the next few weeks, the rides with him started stretching longer. I'd see the Camry parked outside sometimes even after she'd arrived home, like they were finishing a conversation before she came inside. Once I walked outside to grab something from the garage and caught them mid-conversation through the open passenger window. Eric stopped talking the second he saw me. Linda looked irritated. This is my husband, she said flatly, like she was introducing a stranger she barely knew. The driver nodded politely. But I noticed something. He wasn't uncomfortable. Not at all. That kind of confidence only shows up when a man believes he already has a place in someone else's life. After that, Linda stopped even pretending to hide how often she talked about him. Eric says the airport road is a nightmare. Eric told me about this restaurant downtown. Eric thinks electric cars are overrated. She talked about him like he was part of the household. One Saturday morning I asked her something simple. You ever think it's strange you keep getting the same driver? She froze for half a second. Then came the explosion. Oh my God, you're paranoid. She slammed her coffee mug down hard enough to splash the counter. He just happens to be working the area. Not everything is some conspiracy in your head. Her voice climbed higher with every word until it turned into that hysterical pitch she used whenever she wanted to shut down a conversation. Then she grabbed her purse and stormed out of the house. The Camry pulled up 5 minutes later. She didn't even look back. I watched through the front window as she climbed into the passenger seat and slammed the door. Eric pulled away slowly. Like this was all perfectly normal. Like my marriage was just another routine pickup on his daily route. That was the moment I finally accepted something. Linda wasn't just lying. She was enjoying it. Enjoying the attention. Enjoying the secrecy. Enjoying the thrill of having a husband at home and another man waiting in a car outside. And once someone starts enjoying betrayal, they stop worrying about consequences. But reckless people always forget one thing. The more comfortable you get hiding something, the sloppier you become. And Linda, well, her carelessness was about to hand me the truth. Because a few weeks later, on a rainy Tuesday evening, I decided to follow that Camry again. Only this time. They didn't go to a restaurant. They didn't go to a bar. They parked somewhere much quieter. And what I saw inside that taxi. Well, kid. That's the moment I knew my marriage was already over. Rain has a way of slowing everything down. That Tuesday evening the sky had opened up just after sunset. The kind of steady rain that makes the roads shine like black glass and turns every streetlight into a blur. Linda texted me around 6. Working late again. Don't wait up. By then I had heard that line enough times that it sounded like a recording. So I grabbed my keys. The Camry picked her up outside her office just like always. I followed from a distance, wipers slapping back and forth across the windshield. At first the car moved through the normal downtown traffic. Then it turned. Not toward the restaurants. Not toward home. It drove toward a quiet park near the river. A place mostly empty after dark except for dog walkers and the occasional teenager looking for privacy. The Camry rolled into the parking lot and stopped beneath a flickering street lamp. My truck sat about 50 yards away with the engine off. Through the rain-streaked windshield I could see them in the front seats, silhouettes moving slowly as they talked. 5 minutes passed. 10. Then something changed. Eric stepped out of the driver's seat and walked around the car. He opened the back door. Linda climbed out of the front seat, laughing. Not drunk laughter. Playful laughter. The kind people share when they think nobody's watching. Then both of them slid into the back seat together. The doors shut. For a moment nothing happened. Just the rain tapping on the roof of my truck. Then the car started moving slightly. Not driving. Rocking. Slow at first. Then a little more. The street lamp above them flickered again, and I caught a clear view through the back window. Linda's head leaned back against the seat. Eric's body bent over her. There wasn't any misunderstanding left after that. I sat there watching the windshield blur with rain while something inside me went completely quiet. No shouting. No anger. Just a strange stillness. You see, kid, when the truth finally lands, sometimes it doesn't explode. Sometimes it just settles. Like a heavy stone dropped into water. The Camry rocked for nearly 15 minutes. Eventually the movement stopped. A few minutes later the doors opened. They climbed back into the front seats like nothing had happened. Eric lit a cigarette. Linda fixed her hair in the mirror. Then the car pulled out of the parking lot and drove toward our house. I followed again. But this time I wasn't confused. I wasn't hoping. I knew exactly what kind of woman was walking back through my front door. She came in 20 minutes later smelling like rain and perfume. Long day, she sighed dramatically. I looked up from the couch. Yeah, I said. That's what I figured. She didn't notice anything strange in my voice. Because Linda had gotten used to something. She believed I was blind. Believed I was soft. Believed she could keep lying forever. But that night something else had settled in my mind. Not rage. Not revenge. Just a quiet decision. Because once a man sees his wife in the back seat of another man's car, the marriage is already over. The only thing left is deciding what to do with the truth. And believe me, kid, Linda was about to find out exactly what kind of husband she had underestimated. I didn't confront her right away. That surprises people when they hear it. They think a man would storm into the house the second he caught something like that. But anger is loud. And loud men make mistakes. So I waited. 3 days. 3 quiet days where I watched Linda move around the house like nothing had happened. She laughed at television shows. Complained about work. Even asked me to pick up groceries on my way home from the shop. Like she hadn't been in the back seat of another man's taxi 3 nights earlier. That kind of behavior tells you a lot about someone. By Friday evening I had already made my decision. I wasn't trying to save the marriage anymore. I just wanted to see how far she would push the lies. She walked in around 7 that night, dropping her purse on the kitchen counter like always. You didn't cook? She asked immediately. No hello. No smile. Just irritation. I was sitting at the table drinking coffee. I was waiting for you. She sighed dramatically and started opening cabinets. God, you're useless sometimes. That was Linda, always sharp when she felt in control. But this time I watched her calmly and said something simple. Did you enjoy the back seat? Her whole body froze. It was almost comical. For a second she didn't even breathe. Then she turned slowly. What? I didn't raise my voice. Tuesday night. River Park. Back seat of the Camry. The color drained from her face. And then, just like I expected, the performance started. Oh my God, what are you even talking about? She snapped. Her voice shot up instantly into that high hysterical pitch she used whenever she was cornered. You're insane. You must have imagined something. I leaned back in my chair. You want me to describe the position you were in? That's when she lost control. Her hand slammed the counter. You were following me? Now the anger came flooding out of her. Not guilt. Not apology. Just rage. That's psycho behavior. You're spying on me now? I watched her carefully. That's when you really see a person, when their story collapses. She started pacing across the kitchen like a trapped animal. It wasn't what you think, she said quickly. Then 2 seconds later. Nothing happened. Then another version. We were just talking. Every sentence contradicted the one before it. Classic liar's panic. I let her run through all of it. Then I said something that shut her up completely. I watched the car for 15 minutes. Silence. Her mouth opened slightly. For the first time since the conversation started, she looked scared. Not sorry. Scared. Because now she understood something. I knew. And there was no way to scream or manipulate her way out of it. Finally she crossed her arms and sneered. You're pathetic. There it was. When the lies fail, people like Linda switch to cruelty. You probably imagine half of it anyway, she continued. And even if something did happen, maybe you should ask yourself why. That sentence told me everything I needed to know. No remorse. No shame. Just blame. I stood up slowly. Good, I said. That confused her. What? Good, I repeated calmly. Because that makes the next part easy. She frowned. What next part? I walked toward the hallway and grabbed my jacket. The divorce part. The word hit her like a slap. Her eyes widened. Oh please, she scoffed, but I could hear the nervous edge creeping into her voice now. You're being dramatic. I looked back at her. No. Then I said the last thing she expected to hear. I'm being finished. And that kid was the moment Linda finally realized the game she'd been playing wasn't fun anymore. Because the next time I saw that gray Camry, things were going to get a whole lot more public. And a whole lot uglier. After the confrontation, the house turned quiet in a strange way. Linda stopped yelling. Stopped arguing. That kind of silence is never peaceful. It's the silence of someone recalculating. For 2 days she barely spoke to me. Walked around the house with that tight look on her face, like she was deciding whether I was bluffing about the divorce. Then on Monday morning she left for work like nothing had happened. Same heels. Same perfume. Same gray Camry pulling up outside. That told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't even embarrassed. She believed the whole thing would just blow over. So that afternoon I closed the shop early again. The Camry pulled up outside her office around 5. I waited across the street. Linda walked out of the building, spotted Eric immediately, and that smile spread across her face again. The same one that used to belong to me years earlier. They didn't even look around. Not once. That's the danger of arrogance, kid. People get so comfortable in their lies that they stop checking the mirrors. The car pulled away and headed toward the river again. Same quiet park. Same parking lot. Almost the exact same spot under the broken street lamp. I parked much closer this time. 30 feet away. Hidden just enough behind a row of trees. Eric stepped out of the driver's seat. Opened the back door. Linda climbed out of the front and slid right into the back like she'd done it 100 times. Which, by then, she probably had. The doors shut. And within seconds the car started rocking again. Only this time I didn't stay in my truck. I stepped out. Walked across the wet pavement. The rain had started again, light this time, just enough to soften the sound of my footsteps. The Camry's windows were fogged. Inside, 2 shadows moved against the glass. I reached the rear passenger door. And opened it. The look on their faces, kid, that's something I'll never forget. Eric froze like someone had dumped ice water on him. Linda screamed. Actually screamed. What the hell are you doing? She shrieked, scrambling to pull her dress down. Eric tried to sit up too fast and slammed his head on the roof of the car. For a moment none of us spoke. Rain tapping on the metal roof. Linda breathing like a panicked animal. Then she exploded. You're insane! She yelled. You're stalking me now? I just stood there looking at them. 2 grown adults half-dressed in the back seat of a taxi like teenagers. Get out of the car, I said calmly. Eric looked between us, clearly realizing he had walked straight into someone else's disaster. Hey man, listen. He started. Out, I repeated. He climbed out quickly, pulling his jacket over himself and stepping away from the car. Smart move. Linda, on the other hand, wasn't done performing. She started screaming again. You can't just open someone's car like that. This is harassment. I leaned against the door frame and looked at her. You might want to stop shouting, I said. Why? She snapped. I pointed across the parking lot. Two couples walking their dogs had stopped and were staring. Another car had slowed down. People were watching. Linda turned and saw them. And suddenly the hysterical rage shifted into something else. Humiliation. Her face turned red. Get out, I told her again. She stepped out of the taxi finally, shaking with anger. You're disgusting, she spat. Following me like some creepy psycho. I almost laughed at that. Instead I said something simple. Tell them what you were doing. She looked around at the people watching. Her mouth opened. Then closed. Nothing came out. Because even Linda couldn't twist that story in front of strangers. Eric quietly slid back into the driver's seat. He didn't say another word. Just started the engine and drove away. Left her standing there with me in the rain. For the first time since this whole thing started, she looked small. Not powerful. Not confident. Just a woman caught in her own mess. And that kid was the moment she finally realized the marriage wasn't the only thing falling apart. Her little secret life had just become very public. But the real ending? That came later. Because divorce has a funny way of revealing what people really are once the game stops. And Linda, well, she still had one more ugly scene left in her. We drove home in separate cars that night. Linda refused to ride with me. She got an Uber, not Eric this time, and walked into the house about 15 minutes after I did. The moment she stepped through the door, the performance started again. You humiliated me, she screamed before even taking off her coat. Her voice echoed through the living room like an alarm. I was sitting in my chair with a glass of whiskey. Quiet. Calm. That seemed to make her even angrier. You had no right to do that, she continued, pacing the room. Opening the car door like some lunatic. I took a sip and looked at her. You were having sex in a taxi. That stopped her for half a second. But Linda wasn't the type to stop long. So what? She snapped suddenly. There it was. The last mask falling off. So what if I was? Maybe if you weren't such a boring husband I wouldn't have needed someone else. Her words came fast now, ugly and sharp. You sit in that stupid garage all day smelling like motor oil while I'm stuck living the most dull life imaginable. I watched her carefully. You could have left, I said quietly. She laughed bitterly. Oh please. And give up the house? The stability? Don't be naive. That sentence told me everything about how she saw our marriage. Not love. Not partnership. Just convenience. You really thought I'd stay faithful forever? She scoffed. Grow up. I finished my drink. Set the glass down. Then I said the thing that finally changed her tone. The lawyer appointment is tomorrow. Her pacing stopped instantly. What? Divorce paperwork, I said. Filed first thing in the morning. Now the hysteria came back, but this time it had panic mixed in. You're overreacting, she snapped. People cheat. It happens. I shook my head slowly. You didn't make a mistake. I looked her straight in the eyes. You made a lifestyle. For a moment she didn't have an answer. Then the insults started again. You'll regret this. You can't afford the house without me. You're going to end up alone. Funny thing is, kid, when people realize they're losing control, they start throwing anything they can reach. None of it sticks. I stood up and walked toward the hallway. She followed behind me, still yelling. Where are you going? Bed. You're just walking away from this conversation? I stopped at the bedroom door and looked back. The conversation ended when you got in the back seat. That shut her up for the first time all night. I closed the door behind me. And for the first time in months, the house felt quiet again. Not peaceful, but honest. You see, kid, sometimes the worst part of betrayal isn't the cheating. It's realizing the person you loved never respected you enough to even feel ashamed. Linda had lost that marriage long before I opened that taxi door. She just hadn't realized it yet. But the final chapter? That came a few months later. Because life has a funny sense of irony. And the man she threw everything away for Well, he turned out to be exactly what you'd expect from someone willing to sleep with another man's wife in the back of a taxi. The divorce didn't take long. When there are no kids and not much shared property, the law doesn't waste time pretending there's something worth saving. Linda fought at first, of course. Lots of shouting in the early weeks. Lots of ugly words thrown across lawyers' desks. She kept insisting I was overreacting, like catching your wife in the back seat of a taxi was some kind of minor misunderstanding. Funny how people rewrite reality when they don't like the version they created. Eventually the paperwork went through. 6 months after that rainy night at the park, the marriage was officially over. Linda moved out first. Packed her clothes, her shoes, her cosmetics, and the kind of things that mattered most to her. Not once did she look sad while she was boxing things up. Mostly she looked annoyed, like the whole divorce process was an inconvenience she didn't have time for. The day she left, she said something I still remember. "You'll see," she told me while dragging her suitcase to the door. "Eric actually appreciates me." I didn't answer. Sometimes silence is the only honest response left. After she walked out, the house felt strange for a while. Not lonely exactly, just quieter. Like a room after a loud machine finally shuts off. Weeks passed. Then months. And eventually I heard things through mutual acquaintances. Small-town gossip travels faster than taxis. Turns out Eric wasn't exactly the romantic hero Linda thought he was. Driving all day, picking up passengers, meeting people constantly, that lifestyle tends to attract a certain kind of personality. And men like that don't usually settle down with women who cheat on their husbands. Apparently Linda moved in with him for a while. That lasted about 4 months. Then one day she found messages on his phone from 2 different women. Passengers. Regular riders. Sound familiar? By the time she realized the pattern, Eric had already moved on to the next woman willing to slide into the back seat. Linda called me once after that. Late evening. Her voice sounded tired, smaller than I remembered. She didn't apologize. People like her rarely do. But she did say something interesting. "I guess I made a mistake." I held the phone for a moment, and looked around the quiet living room. Then I said the only thing that felt honest. "No," I told her. "That wasn't a mistake. A mistake is forgetting your wallet or missing an exit on the highway." There was a pause on the line. "That," I said calmly, "was a choice." After that we didn't talk again. And life moved forward the way it always does. You know something though, kid? For a long time I wondered why that taxi bothered me so much. It wasn't just the cheating. It was the symbolism of it. A moving vehicle. A temporary place. A relationship that existed only while the ride lasted. And that's the funny little lesson life handed me from that whole mess. Some people treat love like a home. Others treat it like a taxi ride. They climb in, enjoy the trip, and jump out the moment something new pulls up to the curb. But sooner or later those people discover something the hard way. Rides always end. And when they do, you're left standing on the sidewalk with whatever choices you made along the way. Now, that's an old man's story for tonight. And if there's one thing I learned from it, kid, choose someone who wants to build a life with you. Not someone who's just looking for their next ride.